Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler.
Well, close enough. Episode 130 on Inside the Game, the podcast. Nate Wangler, Ryan Glinsky joining me this morning, fresh off of the USL 2 National Championship game. Our fearless leader, Jonathan Turner, is not on the episode today, episode 130. I was in the middle of driving somewhere yesterday evening when I got the phone call. And one of his signature spur-of-the-moment decisions. I love the way that his brain works sometimes. But, hey, I respect it, man, because we're just now getting out of the bulk of soccer season. We're getting out of the busy stuff. Welcome in, by the way, everybody joining us. Feel free to give us a follow, Facebook, Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, all right? I'm an old man. I haven't gotten to that point yet. So just give me a little bit to get used to saying X. But Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all over the place, wherever you can find us. Inside the Game, the podcast on the National Soccer Network. We are live this morning. But I get this phone call driving to where I'm going, and it's JT. And he goes, hey, not going to be on the show tomorrow. Family and I are going to Cedar Point. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine. I mean, to be completely honest with you, my man, I mean, he talked about it on the show, how during a stretch of time during the year, he hadn't seen the sunlight. I mean, there had been like 2 months where this man was literally on vampire mode because he had not seen the sunlight. He works in the dark. He's always inside. So I was like, okay, go do what you're going to do. You may as well go enjoy what remaining parts of the summer you have, because you think about it. And I know that obviously I'm separated from school now, and Ryan, you're graduated. So you're going to get to this point now. But when you were younger, there was this very clear categorization of where you were in the year. You were either during the school year or it was summer, right? You either had something to do, which was school and sports, or you were in the summer, which means, maybe working out, getting ready for school. But, you knew you had a little bit more free time and some stuff to do things. A little bit different when it comes to what we do, because obviously I know that his family members work for the company. And so when you get into the busy season, that's not as much a summer vacation as, maybe some other kids get the opportunity to just go out and do whatever they want to do all summer. It's not the same case with them. So taking advantage of that opportunity to get away, to go to Cedar Point, I respect it. And you were talking about how you've been there before, but I actually have a very uncomfortable thing I have to admit this morning on the show. I've never been to Cedar Point.
Come on now.
A day in my life. Once, dude. Once.
Come
I
on,
like roller coasters. It's not a problem of not liking roller coasters. I've just never been. And Peter says, good. Peter, you gotta beef with Cedar Point. Now I gotta figure out exactly what the beef is there. But I from everyone else I know, that's not a very good thing. Never been to Six Flags, never been to Cedar Point, have been to Michigan Adventures. Oh, good morning, Nate. Okay, he didn't mean to say good, Nate. He meant to say good morning, Nate. That's a little bit different. But I've been to Michigan. We were big Michigan Adventures family. I went on the big Shivering Timbers. That's the big wooden one where it looks like you're about to take a 2x4 to the forehead. Yeah, that one I've been on plenty of times. Corkscrew, dragster, did all that. Never been to Cedar Point. Never been to Cedar Point.
Yeah, I was telling you I was there 2021, which was the year I graduated high school. That was the only time I was there, and again, it was 4th of July week, or 4th of July, like the actual 4th of July, and nobody was in no one was in the building. No one. There was like 30 minutes tops waits. Was absolutely awesome. Was able to get into handful of rides. But also, I've also been to Michigan Adventures. I don't remember when it was. I remember I was a middle schooler, but I do remember being there. The Shivering Timbers ride was my first one, and that was like right when it opened for the day. So it was like 25 minute wait.
That was your first roller coaster ride?
Yeah, I would say that's my first true roller coaster ride. I mean, yeah, you roll like the little. Here in New Baltimore, we have the Fish Fly Festival every year, and there's like carnival and everything like that. So like there was a small roller coaster that went for like 45 seconds, but other than that, Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would say that was the first true roller coaster that I've been on.
That's so I always thought when I looked at that one, I thought that was the one you built up to, right? That was the whole mentality when we went, we're going to start small. And you got,
Mhm.
obviously, I was talking about the corkscrew dragster, which Peter drops in here. He goes, "You just live a sheltered life. That's all." Yeah, I don't, I don't know if I'd say sheltered. I've been out and about. I've done things, Peter. I've just never been to Cedar Point. It is just, that's never really been on the list, apparently. It's this is a funny East Side West Side thing too. Like anytime I'm over on that side of town, it is amazing how many times JT will bring up whether it be a restaurant, whether it be something else that is like for East Siders like you and him. This is stuff that they grew up on, but I've never had it before, and he's just appalled by it. Like I had Chicken Shack for the first time when I was over there a few weeks ago, and he's like,
It's a good place.
"First time?" I'm like, "Psh, yeah, and it's good."
What's a restaurant that's on the west side but not on the east side, or
Uh,
like a fast food joint, anything like that?
oh, Vitale's. You ever had Vitale's
Vitalis.
pizza?
Never,
No.
never heard of it.
All right. That stuff's good because they do double layer, and I know we're going the rabbit holes right now, but that's okay, or rabbit trails. But they do double layer cheese. All right, so
Okay.
they got one layer, they got a second layer, and they got all the stuff on it. It's thick, man. It's really good. So you probably got what Vitale's over here. You got a lot of stuff that's popping up now that's probably new. Man, I'm thinking of so Scribs Pizza. So let me ask you this: what's your favorite type of za?
Type is like, are we
You
talking like company or like
Are
just
you a New York guy? Do you like the thin stuff? Are you a Chicago guy? Do you like the pie?
no?
You know,
I like the Detroit deep dish. I think that's the
Detroit deep
best kind.
dish. All
Yeah, I
right.
like that.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Yeah. Because so over here we got a place in Muskegon. It's called Scribs, Mister Scribs, actually. That place. So that it's New York style. And so you almost have to get two of them, right? Because and if you're just feeding a couple of people, because if you get one, that one is going to be gone by the time you get back home.
Okay.
Right. So the second one is for you when you get back home, right? Because this stuff is so good, but it's like thin, right? So it's thin stuff. So I would try Vitale's. I would also try Mr. Scribs. I don't know how we went from Cedar Point to pizza, but yet here we are. Those are a couple of places you got to try if you come over to this side of town. But anyways, so never been to Cedar Point. So hopefully they have a good one today. Bigsby and Tim Hortons. I've had Bigby and Tim Hortons before. Tim Hortons is great because they got the portion sizes is what makes Tim Hortons
Yeah,
great. You
I
know what I
agree.
mean? Because like you get a large coffee. I mean that thing is literally like that big. So I don't understand how they make it work. I think just half of it's cream and sugar. But anyways, let's get into the conversation here today. I would love to hear, first of all, what's your recommendation? What should I first ride at Cedar Point before we dive into the sports talk?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean,
I would
just my
say
first one. When I roll up, what should I go for?
Millennium Forest is a great one. That's the tallest one that they have there.
All right.
And
No,
I agree with Peter. Food
that's a
brings
classic.
people together.
Oh, it
I agree
absolutely
with Peter.
does.
Food brings people. And I always thought a good one was Steel Vengeance as well. Like it's an old school roller coaster. Like it has the look, has like the feel to it, but they like renovate it into a new day type of roller coaster. So you get like the mix of an old school with a new school type of roller coaster. Millennium Force and Steel Vengeance were my top two.
Okay. All right. I don't, the ones that it's a love and hate type thing. The free falling ones, the ones that are just
Mm.
massively tall where you just fall from the sky. It is a
Yeah.
love hate because, afterwards you're like, wow, that was a lot of fun. But in the moment, your stomach is in your throat. So, yeah. So I might go for one of those. On the topic of food bringing people together, maybe you and I should do a one bite everybody knows the rules little pizza review next time JT isn't available. I don't know, or even if he is available,
Yeah,
come down to the
we might
studio
have
and
to.
do. Yeah, I'm saying. So, anyways, getting into the sports conversation, busy stretch around the world of sports. We're officially into that time of the year. Soccer, at least from the club perspective, is winding down. Obviously, we already had the USLW championship. Utah United taking home their first. We just recently wrapped up the USL 2 championship. Vermont, I mean, if they didn't put themselves on the map with winning the NCAA Division 1 national championship, they certainly put themselves on the map with what they did in the USL 2. And I think of, ways that what's the best way to put an exclamation point on a season. And obviously in a league that is still as young as the USL 2 is, because it hasn't been around for that long. It's been around for a short handful of years. And for a league that is trying to establish themselves in the amateur scene, that is trying to build to a point to where maybe they can rival something like Major League Soccer, you want to see a big exclamation point on the end. You want to see a championship game that lives up to the billing. And it's not always easy because you're talking about a league where sometimes players have to go back to college. Sometimes they have to return back to whatever commitments from which they came from. And so it can make it hard to keep rosters. It can make it hard to keep players around. And we certainly saw that in the USLW championship game. Not that that wasn't an exciting matchup, but it was 4-1, right? It is very one-sided. It wasn't really a close competitive ball game. But when you look at what happened in the USL2, it's a very, very different story. Now, obviously, you got to be a part of the pre, the half, the post for the USL2 championship. Just talk a little bit about your experience. I want to dive into the specifics of what happened in that game and specifically like that fan base in Vermont, because I think if there's one thing that we've been talking a lot about on this show, at least recapping it back on Monday was yesterday, but recapping it was that's what we want to see more out of the amateur scene. And that's the reason why the USL2 has really kind of separated themselves. And maybe there is something to be said about the momentum that they're gathering from being a grassroots movement. But what was that experience like from your perspective, stepping in and being a part of that?
It was a great experience. And, I was someone who was introduced to the USL2 this summer, being the PA announcer with the Macomb Union. But I always thought like it was great soccer. Like I thought there'd be a massive drop off from like DCFC because I'm really familiar with them. But there really was not a drop off. And then back to your Vermont thing, I was able to watch a little bit of the national championship with Vermont and Marshall back when it happened. And I'm like, man, Vermont really, really brings out, like, they really have a great crowd for this. They really show support for their team. And then I'm like, oh, that's probably the last time I'm ever going to see that Vermont crowd. Then you fast forward to Sunday or Saturday, right? It was Saturday. And they showed out again. Like it was great to see that, kind of a small club like that in the grand scheme of things, sell out crowds. You have people on top of bleachers on like the baseball field just trying to get a glimpse in, looking behind the goals. There's people like climbing the fences or just to get a glimpse, it was an awesome thing to see. But the game itself, I was saying in the pregame show, you kind of look at finals, in the soccer landscape, Champions League finals, World Cup finals. These teams kind of sit back a little bit and they're playing to not make that mistake, right? They're playing to not, have a bad giveaway that leads to a goal. But that was not the case. Every single, like Ballard, Vermont, they were going in after it from the get go, and in both in that first half, no goals, but in that first half, each team had a goal line clearance. Whether that was or well, the first one for Vermont was called offsides in the end, but again, goal line clearance before leading up to that, and then at the end of the first half, Ballard had a goal, or Vermont cleared it off the line, and there was two chances in around there. And I'm sitting there at halftime. I'm like, man, that was a fun half. Flash forward to the second half, you have that early penalty, which I still don't think was a penalty. I don't think there's a ton of contact in there. And then Kosakov, Charlie Kosakov for Ballard never shows up. Like he's not never shows up, but he's quiet. And then all of a sudden, he just shows up and scores a goal out of nowhere. Like just does it all the time. And then and to really cultivate a group of people or just a group of fans that are not familiar with your league or your teams, I think a way of doing that is scoring a last second goal or a buzzer beater in basketball, a walk-off home run in baseball, a Hail Mary in football, right? And Vermont did it. And Kissel, I don't know if he's the governor of Vermont just yet or the mayor of Burlington, because he scored the game-winning goal for Vermont in the national championship, and now for Vermont Green. It was spectacular. And then JT also, I don't know if you mentioned this yesterday, that the crowd or the fans actually put the trophy in the crowd and passed it amongst the fans. I don't know if you saw
Wow.
that. Did you see that at all?
I did not. No, I did not catch that. But that's something that I'll see if I can pull it up here for the show. But wow, that's something.
But that's like you've never like what championship have you ever seen where yeah, let's just put the trophy with the fans. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
Like you kind of saw with the Bucks with when Tampa and Gronk or with Brady and Gronk throwing the Lombardi trophy around. That's like as far as we got, and then we saw the Michigan or not the Michigan Panthers, the Florida Panthers take the Stanley Cup into the ocean. But other than that, like you don't see, them put the trophy into the crowd, and it was just
Yeah.
great to see.
And it's funny you brought up Max Kissel scoring, and I believe I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If I'm not, Vermont fans, if you're watching this, please don't come after me. But scoring that game-winning goal, and like poetic justice, I don't even think comes all that close to describing that moment in particular. Because to score that game-winning mark, in the NCAA national championship, and really in a lot of ways, shocked the world. That Vermont was able to get the job done and win that championship, only to turn around and do it in the USL too. It all kind of plays into what I was saying yesterday, and I know that JT has kind of a differing opinion on this, and we can get back into the nitty gritty of specifically what happened in the championship game, because I do think it was a fascinating game from what I did watch. But the one thing that I think really kind of correlates, and it's a connecting the dots moment for me, is this is a player, as an individual that plays for the university in Vermont. I think they have, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they have one Division I college in the state, and then they have one Division II college in the state, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I don't know if you're Google checking me over there just to make sure that, okay, all right, let me know if I'm wrong. But I believe Vermont is the only major Division I college in that state. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different with like us here in Michigan. We have Michigan State, we have Eastern, Western, Central, and we have a lot of Division I institutions for a state that population-wise is pretty big. Peter says underdogs rule. They absolutely do rule. It's one of the things that I think makes, I mean.
Yeah, Vermont's the only D1 team.
Okay. They got a couple of D2s.
I'm searching out that one.
Okay. All right. But anyways, the underdog story is great and everything else like that. But this is a player that the fans in Vermont who are from that state, who are from that area, can gravitate towards because he's their guy. This is something that I think sometimes we get lost on, especially now when it comes to the college game, because in a lot of times it feels like a professional environment, because you'll have a player for a year, maybe you'll have them for a year and a half, 2 years if you're lucky, and then it's transfer portal, or it's declaring for the draft, or it's going somewhere else. These players are constantly on the move, and it's rare that anytime you look at a player's bio or you look at, what was their story leading up to this point, it's rare that you see, oh, they played for this college, period. Normally it's this college and then this college, and then they were over here, and then they were over here, and then they joined this, and now they're here. It's rare that you see someone stick it out in one place for a very long time. And why that's detrimental to fan bases is because you can never really gravitate or grab onto the group that you have. That's why when people say college sports have changed, that's the biggest reason for fans. Because growing up, I had certain guys that I was fans of, big Michigan family. I know I have a Purdue sweatshirt on. Okay, it was a great deal at the local Salvation Army. I think it was like $5 or something. It's very cozy. Anyways, not the point.
Hey, deal's a
But
deal.
that's what I'm saying. But there were guys that we always gravitated towards. Now it's tough because you don't know whether or not you're going to have them the next day. And I think that was something that, especially when you get into take that even further, you talk about someone like Caitlin Clark, right? Why was she so beloved? One of the biggest reasons was because she was at Iowa. She was a kind of a dying breed of superstar where she was in one place for years on end. So there became this obsession. There became this growing push, this popularity around the university and the team that they've never seen before. And I'm not comparing the soccer world and what we see with Vermont to Caitlin Clark. All right. That's not a comparison that I can even draw. But when Max does what he did and he scored that game-winning goal for the USL2, the fan base feels connected to him already. And they feel connected to this team already. And because of that familiarity, you get exactly what we saw whether or not it's passing the trophy around in the stands or the amount of people that come out to it. Your community, your team, you feel like you have a hand in this team's success or watching them grow into success. I think of Detroit City FC in a lot of ways. Now, they've grown a lot over the course of the last few years, but there are people that I feel like, emotionally speaking, are connected to Detroit City FC. They love watching them play. They love being a part of that environment. I would say the same thing about the Flint City Bucks. Now, is it to the same extent to Vermont? No, but then again, if you're a state like Vermont, and you don't, I mean, it's a small state. There's not a ton to do. I mean, you're going to rally behind your guys because, again, you feel emotionally connected to a team that's there, and they don't really have any other major sports. So that's their thing. You think about it like it's in the same way of like college baseball in the South. A lot of them, they don't have major league teams. Now, you can cheer for the Braves, but if you live in somewhere like South Carolina, why would you do that? What vested interest do you have in cheering for the Atlanta Braves if you're 2 states away? So what I said yesterday, and again, JT kind of differed on this because he said that we have so many teams, and that's fair, but not all of those leagues either, number one, have the capability to, or the money to, or the know-how to, but that's really, truly engage the community that they're in. And that's where amateur soccer can really start to stand out in the United States and make a difference and create this monster, if you will, this popularity, is because these smaller communities, there is actually a push to make it feel like, if you're one of the supporters, that you are a part of it. I mean, when you look at other places like Italy and the Ultras and a lot of these other places, they're actually almost literally a part of the team. Like, they have certain expectations that the players need to live up to. These are supporters. And I've always said, you're not going to have sports if you don't have supporters. They're the reason why we play. They're the reason why people get paid. So I think the grassroots movement and the community focus is so important when it comes to soccer, and having a team that identifies with the community. I don't know what you saw during the championship game, but I feel like Vermont, between them and Annapolis and Ballard and all of these other places, the focus on community and getting players from that state and that area to feel like they have something, one of their own, that they can cheer for, makes all the difference at the end of the day. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, why do you think the what is it, the UFL, the XFL? Why do you think that league puts teams in like Birmingham, Alabama, or like small cities like that? That, I mean, I know we had the Michigan Panthers here in Detroit, and there might be a reason why they're relocating is because we already have the Lions in Michigan State, but the reason is because you're trying to establish that community base. Why, again, you just said with DCSC. My first game I went to was in 2021, and tickets were like $5 a pop, like $10 a pop tops, and it was awesome to go to. But now I think the cheapest one is like $20, maybe $17, and that's because there's such a community base, and you get like like that European soccer feel where you're walking through the neighborhoods to get to the stadium. I think that's awesome. But that's just a side note. But yeah, it's if you're not an NFL, an MLB, if your franchise is not one of the big four, you have to develop the community base. Like there's no way around it. Like
Yeah.
if you're Vermont and all of a sudden you're like, let's be New York, like let's be a New York team or something like that. New York Rough Riders. I feel like that is Rough Riders. I feel like that was the UFL XFL team. I think that might have been actually a team. But like that's like you have to have a community base because if you move to New York, you move to a Detroit, you move to a Chicago, you're battling with all the other major sports. And, you know, those fans are not necessarily going to go to a soccer game just because. Like, if you're going
Right.
to New York, you have the Yankees and the Mets are playing. Those are World Series esque type of teams all the time. You're not going to be able to do that. That's why building that community foundation, having watch parties at the local restaurants and bars are so important to those teams. And you have to, and going to your point of, feeling like that's one of your own. That's why I always feel like college football has always kind of been like a great atmosphere because you're
Yeah.
taking these local kids, like for instance, Aiden Hutchinson, Dearborn, went to Orchard Lake St. Mary's, then played at Michigan, and now is a Detroit Lion. Why do you think there was so many like letters and so much stuff done to Hutch when he had his leg broken and was in the hospital? Because the fan base has known Hutchinson. Some may from high school because of Orchard Lake, or not Orchard Lake St. Mary's. He didn't go there. I'm drawing up. He didn't go to Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I'm blanking on the high school that he went to. I don't
Um,
know. It's a Dearborn.
Divine
Gosh,
Child.
Divine Child. Thank you. I knew it
Yep.
wasn't Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I don't know why I said
You're
that.
good.
I don't know why I said that, but a Divine Child, some since Divine Child, and then Michigan, where he tore it up, and kind of was the catalyst for bringing Michigan to beat Ohio State. So you have that, and then he's part of the renaissance of the Detroit Lions. Like that's why so many people resonate with them. And then to your minor league point, or not point, but to your minor league commentating, why do you think Tiger fans would be so devastated to lose a Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal? Not because they're amazing talents, but they're playing for the Whitecaps, and then they're continuing to go up the ranks, and then eventually they'll be Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
So they resonate with those players.
Right. And it's a team, and we always say this to the players every year, and I think it's interesting that you bring up this point because we exist. Our team is in the same state as the parent club, right? But there's that combination of they're going to be Tigers some days, but there's still that community feel to where they're playing for us right now. I mean, this is our team. This is our group. And I remember we were interviewing, we call him the OG. His name's Rick Berkey. He's the first voice of Whitecaps baseball. So they started in '94. That was 2 years before I was born. But their initial focus, don't laugh at me. I know I'm old. All right. I see that smile on your face. My birthday starts with a 19 in front of it. He's like laughing over there.
I'm 2003.
Yeah. Well, you're a young gun, so I'm envious. But when they started, he talked about how the initial focus of that team. Now, mind you, when they started, I mean, even 30 some odd years ago, the city looked far different than what it looks now because of there wasn't as much in the way of college kids coming in. Grand Valley was not nearly as big. Davenport was still just basically a glorified business school. So a lot of those things have changed. But the initial reason why they started doing it was because of the community. They wanted to create a community atmosphere where people could come out, enjoy themselves, and really indulge in the experience of all of it. Yes, obviously they want to develop good major league talent. They all do. but that was really initially the focus for them. And so that's kind of that, again, talk about grassroots, that's built off of itself now. And so now you see the 7, 8, 9,000 people that show up to games. A lot of them to see the prospects, but a lot of them also to just be a part of it. And the reason why I think that this is so important is because of the authenticity that provides soccer, right? We talk about stuff like ProRel. Everything we do over here, and I know that JT has been adamant about saying this, everything we do right now is really in an attempt to kind of mirror what they're doing overseas. I'll use England as an example. I'll use the UK as an example. Even so much to the point that, they're thinking in 2027, the MLS is literally going to move the schedule around to more closely resemble that of what they're doing in the likes of the Premier League. Now, I don't know how that works logistically because there are some teams that play in certain parts of the country that it's going to be cold, my man, like really, really cold. And I don't know how you play this sport in shorts when it's 30 some odd degrees out. But again, it is above my pay grade. I don't make those decisions. But a lot of what we do is from our academies to how we train, to how we ref, to how we coach, to everything is resembling that of what they do over there. However, I think we are maybe missing out on one of the more key components of what over there is that we don't have. Obviously, the cultural relevance. We've talked about that. I think Tom Brady and his new docuseries is interesting. We'll touch on that in a little bit here. But the authenticity part that's missing is that over there you have these several communities, and again, it's not nearly as big, right? Texas is bigger than the UK is. Like this is what we're talking about when we talk about land and geography and just how big the United States is. That's fair, Peter. It is cold in the UK, but it is their summertime when they're playing their regular season, right? Am I not right on that? I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that.
It ends in May or early May, late
Okay.
April, and then starts in mid-August. So I think they start back up here in like a week or two. So they don't play
Okay.
June, July, but they still play in the cold weather. They still play in they're basically like if you were to start the NFL season and then extend it all the way to April.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, interesting. Okay. Either way, getting back on the train here. But these small communities in the UK, they have the teams that they're emotionally attached to, right? They have their community teams. They make the walks to the stadium. They all join up at the pub beforehand and they go. Now, this is something that obviously isn't it great? I mean, that's something that is really, it is uniquely soccer, and we see that in certain communities. We see that with certain MLS teams. But for the USL, especially the USL2 and in these amateur leagues, I realize that there's a lot of soccer, and I realize the thought of adding more is scary. But it was something that I heard Alexi Lalas talked about during the North American Soccer Expo, that more is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to pick the right areas in order to put these teams in so that we can get something like that. I mean, this is the reason why I'm so excited that Grand Rapids is getting a team, because when you build a big brand new stadium downtown, when you put it in the heart of the city, now you are giving the people an epicenter. You're giving everywhere from food to bev to the experience. Now they can actually cultivate a fan base that can be there, that can support that team, that can really bring them to that next level. I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like if we're talking about the authenticity of the game itself, we're missing that component a little bit more here in the United States, because it's so business oriented that we forget that the most important thing when growing popularity in the US is getting into these communities and making them feel like they're a part of it. Again, that's the reason why, on this show, we've always said that, Messi coming over here and playing in the United States makes an impact. And it has made an impact, 100%. But at the same time, Messi's not from here. Messi's not from here. He doesn't owe the MLS anything. The MLS, I mean, they need him more than he needs the MLS. And so in terms of getting the American fan to be like, this is my team, this is my city, it's like, it might be, but you just want to go out and you want to watch the greatest to ever do it. And I understand that, but that doesn't grow it on a community base, grassroots basis. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you also got to think though that soccer is the fifth most popular sport. You're competing with
Yeah.
hockey, football, basketball, baseball. Over in the UK, it's I think just rugby and soccer would be
Golf.
my guess.
Yeah, but that's
Golf,
more
yeah.
like an individual sport. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
That's what you're kind of competing with over there. But we have so many things so many different sports that soccer has to compete with, and not our best athletes are playing soccer. They're playing a whole bunch of different other sports, and we're also not the top league. That's, I think, something that Americans also have to accept because we're the
Yeah.
best at everything else except soccer. So you look at the guys like Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, our American-grown players. In order for them to be the best, they have to leave. They have to go over into Europe and play games. I mean, I'm sure at the end of their career, Pulisic will probably play for a New York City or an LA, maybe even a Miami to play in the MLS when he's 32, 33. I'm hoping that he comes at that point. If he comes any sooner, then that means he's taking a turn for the worse in terms of playing. But we can't really grow like top American talent here in the US. You can, but you're not going to see them play for an MLS team, at least you would hope, not in their early 20s, late teens. Like they're going to be in the academies as teenagers, but once you get to 16, 17, 18, if you want to be the best, you've got to get over there. You have to leave and head over to overseas. So you're not able to grow that foundation. Like my Hutchinson comparison, what I was saying is the top for him to be the best in his sport. All the resources, all the facilities, all the coaches, trainers are here in the states. Where when he went to Michigan, you had Harbaugh, which is one of the best football coaches in his time, and then you go over to the NFL, and he's got one of the best coaches in Dan Campbell, one of the best GMs in Brad Holmes, and a whole bunch of trainers. He's able to do that right within a 20-30 mile radius of his house. If you're over here, you live in Michigan, you've got to go overseas. That's completely different. So that's where it's a little bit harder, where we don't have that authenticity. We don't have like our top teams. We don't even have the proper, like our MLS, we don't even have the proper promotion, relegation, anything like that. It's too, I've always said it's too Americanized, if that makes any sense. The
Yeah.
MLS is too Americanized. It's too much of the model of the NFL. Like there's still a draft, for crying out loud. There's NFL and NBA. Like it's too much like that. Where when it comes to soccer, we have to accept that we are not the best. We don't have the best resources at it. We have to use the overseas model. We just have to.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if, logistically speaking, that would work. Because you look at the way that the USL has handled business and the way that they want to do business. They want to bring it to a point to where it's more like that, to where it more resembles exactly what's happening in those places. But again, when you talk about travel expenses, when you talk about the size, the sheer size of the country, and how much that would require for clubs, not only just getting into the league, but being able to go and do things and go through something like a pro rel system, I think would be hard. But to me, at the end of the day, when we really look at what went on in this USL2 championship, it makes me happy to see something like that, to see the turnout, see the hype, to see the passing of the trophy, to see someone like Bernie Sanders. Now, I don't know if he was at the game, and I don't really care what you think about him politically or otherwise, but the fact that someone of that caliber would show up tells you a little something.
Yeah.
And I we can save the Brady conversation for later unless we have time at the end of this, but there are more and more American superstars, American celebrities who are getting involved in the game of soccer, who are, either investing or becoming part owners or doing all these other things. So it's what is frustrating is that it's happening little by little. And I don't ever buy into the mentality of never. And I hate when people say never because you don't know that. You don't know how things change socioeconomically. You don't understand how things could literally be different from one day to the next. We said the same thing about hockey. Oh, we would never catch up to the Canadians, never catch up to. We have the second best youth development program in the world right now outside of Canada and hockey. I would argue probably the best, right? It's just we can't manage to beat them consistently on the highest level. But in terms of U20s, U18s, U19s, I mean, we run things right now in the world. No one ever thought we'd be there in hockey. We're there. Okay, no one ever thought we would. I mean, meddling in rugby. I mean, I realize it was women's rugby, but come on, man! Like that's not our sport. That's not our thing. We don't play ruggers over here. At least not organized. I mean, it's a club sport. But. Yeah. They do in South Africa. They do in a lot of these other places, but yet here we are meddling, and the men's are getting better. So I just don't buy into this whole never thing. I mean, I truly believe, and this might feel like a, a true American patriot type thing to say, but I think if you give the United States an opportunity to a challenge to grow and develop and become the best at something, they can live up to that. But again, it's that whole figuring out where exactly and how exactly we're going to go about doing that. Peter says European model is a I'm assuming that means tried and true grassroots building a player. Yeah, I mean from the bottom up. He's from the community. He's from around here, and that's why I said like when Max put in that game-winning goal, it was like that feels like poetic justice because he's a Vermont kid through and through. And so that really kind of put the bow on everything that was that. So it's a fascinating conversation, man. I mean, I think the amateur soccer space, to be honest with you, I think it's more exciting than the professional soccer space in the United States. I really do. I really, really do. And that's where the frustration comes in for me, Ryan, because I'm of this mindset right now that, well, why don't we all just like work together? Why doesn't the USL come into a meeting with the MLS and everybody shakes? I know. I believe you me. I know. I get it, dude. And I'm happy that you understand that too. But that's where I'm at. Like, why don't we all just shake hands, give each other hugs and work together on this thing to try and bring this to the next level? But that's exactly it. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of ego. There's a lot of narcissism in the soccer space that just will not allow that to happen. It's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing.
You're 100% right. I mean, you have millionaire, billionaire owners in the MLS, and they don't want to lose their piece of the pie if they have to get relegated or go down a division. Absolutely, the MLS and the USL should be working amongst each other to kind of build like those tiers. Like, you ever see like the European pyramid of soccer where the Premier League, Championship 1 and 2, but it's at the end of the day, like I said, it's too Americanized. It's about the business model and money. Like going back to your American owner point, I mean, out of the big six, the traditional big six in England, I know in terms of the standings, it's not that anymore, but four of the big six in England are owned by American owners. You have the Bully with Chelsea, the Cronkies with Arsenal, Glazers with United, and I'm blanking on the other one. Oh, FSG with Liverpool. I don't know why I was blanking on that one. But and then you kind of look. I know Michael B. Jordan's a minority owner of Bournemouth. I know Dude Perfect and JJ Watt with Burnley, and then we haven't mentioned even Reynolds and McElhenney with Wrexham and what they're doing over there. But you
Right.
also understand, I don't know if you were watching soccer or following soccer in 2020, Nate. I know you're relatively new to the soccer spheres. Like, were you watching in 2020?
Little bit. I've watched a little bit my whole life, just not as religiously as I think some, maybe
And
like
then
yourself.
and then you kind of look at what the Americans were trying to do in 2020 as the owners of building that super league, and that was strictly the model of the NFL, the MLB, where we're just going to take 20 of the best teams, which at the time 20 of the best teams weren't even good. Like Arsenal was in that mix; they had no business being in there. You put them all in that mix, and we're not going to have promotion relegation. It's just going to be 20 teams, and whoever's the best one's the best one, and we're going to have a playoff system. But that's not what the people want. Like when it
Yeah.
comes to and the thing is the Man City owner who is not from America is not American, and all the non-American owners were like, "This might be the dumbest idea ever. Like we can't do this." And the idea is going to pop up again. It's just a matter of when and where.
Yeah.
It's going to be a couple of years down the line, and the idea is going to pop up again, and then the fans are going to protest, and that's ultimately what stopped it was the fans protesting. But again, it's too American. It's soccer here is just too Americanized, and they have to work together, as you mentioned. It has to, because if they're able to work together, that's going to build the game so much more. Because like a team like Vermont, who just won the US2 championship, would have been promoted to the next tier, and then they might go down and they might continue to go up, but they're at the end of the day, teams that are in the USL2 have a goal to get to the top of the US, the MLS, and potentially play in the CONCACAF Champions League that's going on. So there's a
Yeah.
pathway. But with the current US model, there isn't, because of the MLS not putting that promotion relegation system in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it that's the most frustrating part is that you see it in front of you and you're like, this is how it could go, right? In a perfect world. And as we build ourselves up in this way, and I think it's so funny because the question has been posed multiple times to multiple high level people in the sport of soccer across the world. Is there a bias against Americans in this sport? I don't know if it's implicitly against the players themselves that they can't play. If you can win, you can win. I think there are some Americans that have garnered a lot of respect playing this game. I think Christian Pulisic being one of them. I think he's revered where he is in terms of his club status. But when it comes to how we talk about and how we view the sport, that's where people get frustrated because everything, and I think that this is a societal thing, Ryan. I don't think that this is necessarily just a sports thing. I think this is how we operate in society that are very different. And what we value is very different. I mean, even from the point of view of like, we over here, we glorify burnout. We glorify work until you drop. Over there, it's like, they can take 3 weeks off just to stare at a wall. You know what I mean? That's all they need to do. Like there are very different societies.
Yeah.
And so when those people hear us talk about the sport, they're like, you really don't understand. You don't get it. Now you're trying to get it. And I even told JT this. I'm like, this is like the same exact thing as, because I do high school football over here on the west side, right? So I call games for Caledonia High School. It's kind of the same thing as the kids we played a team from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. That
Did
came,
not know
came,
you could. I didn't know you guys could do that.
Oh yeah, Holy Names High School. Theo. Oh geez, what's his name? The tight end for the Giants. Theo Johnson, I think his name
Yeah.
is. He's from Windsor, so he
Oh,
went to
okay.
Windsor Holy Names. So there's a few more Canadians that are getting into the NFL, but I vividly remember them getting off the bus and breaking out their smartphones and taking pictures and videos of this high school facility like it was the Taj Mahal. They're like, this is gorgeous. I'm like, dude, like, go
That's
to
awesome.
Texas, go to Florida, go to, like, are you kidding? Like this ain't even,
Those are like
this ain't
college
even,
stadiums.
yeah, this doesn't even touch any of those other places. But, and then you watch them play and you're like, okay, I feel like I've seen what they're trying to do in Madden before. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like the way they line up, the way they play the game, the way they do certain things. You're like, you know about the sport of football. You know what the rules are. You know what the goal is, but you don't know, right? You just
Yeah.
don't know, because when then you watch the American side play and it's like, they got, RPOs and motions and all these other things that they're doing. And it's like, what the hell? You're like, and they have one guy up in the booth that's running a camcorder that's doing the entire game. They don't have headsets. They don't have any of these other things.
Wow.
And it's because, again, the cultural relevance of the sport in Canada is not there. So they don't understand. They don't know what they don't know. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes when it comes to Americans in this sport in particular, the beautiful sport, soccer, football, it's kind of the same exact way. It's kind of the same exact thing.
Yeah, and you mentioning that like American players might get a bad rap. I remember a couple years ago when McKinney was breaking into Juventus, he mentioned that he goes, it felt like after like 2 or 3 years there, he goes, it felt like every year I had to prove myself again to the fan
Again,
base, or
yeah,
because because I always remember that McKinney was, oh, he might be sold this summer after he played a phenomenal year in Serie A and Champions League and he scored goals. But it was, he's like, I have to constantly prove myself once again to everyone, and now
yeah,
I'm sure that's moved on. But I also want to mention is like in that same thing that he talked about, like I forgot what analyst said it, he goes, the way that we're pushing the American soccer players over in Europe and the way that they're portrayed and the way that they have to constantly prove themselves is when the European basketball players were first breaking into the NBA, where, oh, you guys can't do that. This is American. You guys are European. Stick with soccer over there. Like
yeah, yep,
you guys can't battle with the Michael Jordans. You can't battle with the Karl Malones or the Bad Boys or anything like
yep,
that. But fast forward to 20, 25 years later, France took, well, Serbia too. Serbia and France took the Avengers of USA basketball to the limit.
yeah,
Remember, USA had a battle back against Serbia, and Wembanyama is just, that guy's not human. And you mentioned Tom Brady earlier. Tom Brady's also not human. They're all
right,
aliens. They just can't be. But even Canada. Look at Shea Gilgeous Alexander.
yeah,
MVP. He's from Canada. Like the last three MVPs are European based. They're not American based in the NBA. So it's going to take time, but there's definitely a pathway for American soccer players and the United States as a whole to truly understand it to a level. Obviously, I shouldn't say
yeah.
truly understand it, but get a good grasp of it. But it's going to take time, but there's definitely a pathway for them to do it.
I know we're gonna leave some stuff on the table here, but that's okay. It's always good to talk about later on. But I to circle back to that point, the where that respect comes though, and this is where it gets really frustrating to me in watching. And again, I hope that September changes my tone on this once we get to that point, and once we start seeing the national team more and more. But the prioritizing of what is most important in the grand scheme of things when we talk about the American game and gathering that respect for those
Yeah,
players from the United States is that we need to succeed on the international level. But
100%.
where is the priority for these players? Is it country above club, or is it club above country? And this is where we've kind of run into issues, because I think for a lot of players the shifting mentality is that it's club. And the hard thing is that you don't want to sacrifice your money, right? The club is your paycheck, right? That's
Yeah,
where you make your money. That's where you really separate yourself as a professional. You can't just poo poo or push away your chances, your opportunities as a player for your club, because in the high level leagues that they're playing in, whether it be Serie A, Bundesliga, Champions, Premier, whatever, you can't just push that aside, because if you do and you disregard it, you're putting yourself in a really bad position. And I think there might be a sense of amongst American players, if they don't give absolutely and everything that they can to that club, that they could and they will be replaced. but yet they feel safe and secure on the national side. So that's the hard thing. And we talked about this yesterday, that we need to show more patience towards the national side and how far we've come, but yet also be willing to acknowledge that there's still a lot left to be done. And, JT said it yesterday that we've never said on our show that they're just absolutely terrible or ripped into them. He's lying, by the way. I got receipts. I can pull that up. All right. Note that. But but it's okay to admit that we're not there quite yet. But that should be, in my mind, top of mind, is how do we get the international side to a point to where not only do we succeed coming into 2026, and no one says that we have to win the World Cup. I don't think anybody in their right mind says we have to win the World Cup. But
They
how
won't
do
win
we?
it anyway.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's fair. But how do we get the most out of the international side? Because that is the only way. It is the only way, in my mind, that we are actually going to get the rest of the world to respect American soccer. Because again, you brought up the basketball example. I mean, we need to send our best now. There's no more wiggle room to just send the B side anymore, because Serbia has arrived, France has arrived, Spain has always been very good. I mean, Australia has always produced really good players. I even think of South Sudan, who took the United States down to the wire. Now, mind you, that was an exhibition. That was not during, round robin or not meddling knockout stages, whatever. But South Sudan, who is like probably the youngest country of any of the countries competing in international basketball, took the U.S. down to the wire. I mean, what was that? A couple of points they beat them by, the U.S. So
I think so.
Yeah. So, but that's, and when you look at the sheer amount of pride that those players take in their national teams. I mean, go watch the Court of Gold documentary. I mean, look at the way Jokic celebrates winning a bronze medal. He's more excited about a bronze medal and seeing his horse win than he is winning an NBA championship.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
I think that there's a little validity to saying that the NBA is just a job for the guy. And I don't think that's all that ridiculous. He's not from here. He wants to play with the best. He wants to represent the best. Sure, he wants to win an NBA championship. Everybody wants to win a championship. But the thing that matters more to him at the end of the day than anything else is motherland Serbia. How do we do the best that we can to try and beat the big bad Americans and get people to look at our country and go, oh, okay, those guys mean it. They know ball.
Yeah,
and so that's the difference.
Yeah, it was just like when Jokic was being interviewed and was like, well, what day's the parade? And he's like,
what's
Tuesday.
The parade?
He's like, I have to go home, please.
I have to leave.
It's just hard for American soccer players, I think, because, you're traveling, you're out of the country for 9-10 months of the year. And because that's where the best is. And we can't produce the best league, and we can't produce a platform for our players here in the US where they're able to do it from home. Like they have to go elsewhere. So again, I'm not upset with the players of like the Pulisic's of the world that skipped the Gold Cup, because in the grand scheme of things, does a playing a Guatemala beating them 7-0 really prove anything? No. But them possibly playing against a Mexico would be the only test. But I guess the timing of it all kind of hurt as well, because you have the World Cup next summer. But, basically what they have to do is hopefully in these next upcoming camps and hopefully into the World Cup that they're able to gel together. But I would say to where the U.S. can prove it, I think where they prove it is that they somehow get to a semifinal or a quarterfinal, but in the process, in the group stage, they knock off a European power, and then they knock off a European power at a minimum in the round of 16.
Well, that'll wrap up episode 130. I agree, man. I mean, this is where we're kind of going with, especially coming up on the World Cup. Great job on the USL 2 championship. Good job at the North American Soccer Expo. Hopefully I have you on here again soon. We can talk about all that. We got to do a little three pod here with you and JT and I all involved. So we'll definitely get you back on. But we appreciate all you guys stopping by. As always, like, follow, subscribe. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, anywhere. Anywhere you literally find anything, we're probably on it. Inside the Game, right back tomorrow morning with episode 131. Ryan, thanks as always for stopping by, man.
Thanks for having me. Had a blast.
It's Ryan Glinsky. This is Inside the Game. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. And until then,